This is the theBreaker.news podcast for the week of September 26th, 2021. I'm Bob Mackin, publisher of theBreaker.news and host of the theBreaker.news podcast. Welcome to edition number 205. The Breaker is your source for news, opinion, and analysis about British Columbia issues, institutions, and influencers. Later, I'll tell you how you can support The Breaker. On this edition, headlines from the Pacific Rim and the Pacific Northwest. I award a virtual Nanaimo bar to a difference maker. And the big deal feature. Meng Wanzhou is back in China. The two Michaels are back in Canada. A look back at the global geopolitical, legal, and tech saga that unfolded right here in Vancouver. This is the big deal feature on the theBreaker.news podcast. December 5th, 2018, the biggest world news out of Vancouver since the 2010 Winter Olympics. The chief financial officer of Chinese tech giant Huawei was in a women's jail in Maple Ridge, BC. Meng Wanzhou was arrested December 1st, 2018 at Vancouver International Airport, wanted in the United States for fraud. So began a geopolitical, technological, business, and legal saga inside and outside the BC Supreme Court in Vancouver. On December 10th, 2018, the same day she was released on a $10 million bail and house arrest conditions, China arrested ex-diplomat Michael Kovrig. Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland spoke to reporters on December 12th, 2018.
We are working very hard to ascertain his whereabouts, and we have also raised this case with the Chinese authorities.
Shortly after, Canada learned that a second Canadian Michael, businessman Michael Spavor, was kidnapped. China claimed there was no connection between the two Michaels in the Meng case. They say they were charged with espionage. Canadians, Americans, and allies knew that there was a connection. On podcast edition number 60, December 16th, 2018, I interviewed Peter Humphrey, a former British journalist who spent 2 years in a Chinese jail. Peter, what are your thoughts on the arrest and the bail for Meng Wanzhou?
The arrest sounds like it's based on very black and white information that has been gathered after a very long professional investigation. And, this has to be played through the justice system. And the fact that Canada has released her on bail is really a very, very good sign that Canada is a country under the rule of law, in great contrast to all the scare stories that we hear in China. Miss Meng is now free on bail. She's free to go to see her doctors if she needs to. She's free to see her family. She's free to communicate widely. Yes, she's under surveillance, she's tagged, but she's, for all intents and purposes, free. A marked contrast with the two Canadians who have been arrested in Beijing, who are being held in incommunicado in a tit-for-tat action. It's also a marked contrast to the barbaric manner in which I and my wife were treated. We were never bailed. I had prostate cancer. They knew it. They didn't want to admit it, didn't tell me. And I was unable to get any medical treatment until I was released after 2 years in captivity. My wife had a kidney disease, same thing, okay? And this is a formidable contrast in the way that a country under the rule of law, with independent courts, independent judges, transparent due process, behaves, and a country such as China, where it's putting a massive elite called the Communist Party above the law. In your country, in Canada, and in my country, in the UK, nobody is above the law. In China, Communist Party is above the law, the leadership is above the law, they can do what they like, and they use law. It's not rule by law, rule of law in China, it's rule by the law. And that means the law is used as a toy or a big stick held by those in power to bash the people who they don't like.
On podcast edition number 65, January 20th, 2019, Peter Deline of Safeguard Defenders was my guest. He's a former political prisoner in China.
I believe the Chinese realize that they've painted themselves into something of a corner here. Usually this kind of bullying tactics tend to work for the Chinese Communist Party. We've seen similar situations with Sweden not that long ago. And I think as far as they're concerned in terms of tactic and strategy, the resistance shown by Canada has taken them by surprise. And they will try to escalate this situation step by step until they can see that Canada is willing to sort of negotiate and sort of take this step to de-escalate the situation. Largely, Michael Kovrig and Spavor are tools by the Chinese side to try to force Canada to de-escalate the situation. And we're going to see them adding more and more such tools as long as Canada refuses. But we're also seeing in Chinese state media that the sort of the growth or even snowballing in support being issued for Canada by a growing list of nations, and now, of course, with some upcoming meetings, that they are rattled. This is not at all what they expected, and I think they find themselves painted into a corner without any real options for how to deal with this at the moment.
On January 26, 2019, Canada's ambassador to China, John McCallum, was fired for politicized comments about the case.
So I think she has some strong arguments that she can make before a judge. One, political involvement by comments from Donald Trump in her case. Two, there's an extraterritorial aspect to her case. And three, there's the issue of Iran sanctions, which are involved in her case, and Canada does not sign on to these Iran sanctions.
Podcast edition number 118, January 26, 2021. A rent-a-crowd outside the law courts. One of the most bizarre moments of the whole saga. A group of young adults who thought they were going to be movie extras were actually fake protesters in favor of freeing Meng Wanzhou as they stood outside the law courts. theBreaker.news eventually found out that a woman friendly with the Chinese Communist Party appeared to be involved in the scheme. A couple dozen people, apparently in their late teens or early 20s, were holding signs that read, "Free Ms. Meng, bring Michael home, Trump stop bullying us, equal justice." But none of the protesters I talked to really had any knowledge or passion for the cause.
What group are you with, and why do you want Ms. Meng freed?
We just want equal justice.
Equal justice? How's equal justice? Are you aware of the extradition treaty?
I'm not aware.
You're not aware of the extradition treaty or the facts of the case?
No, I'm not.
You're not?
But protesting equal rights for my man, Mr.
So what group are you with?
Pardon?
What's the name of your group?
This is my group, not yours. Yeah, you don't have to answer anything.
You don't answer any questions? Who sent you here?
We're here.
What school do you go to?
Pardon?
Which school do you go to?
I don't think you're allowed to ask us personal questions like that.
I'm a reporter. I ask personal questions.
We're not liable to answer if we don't want to.
Okay, so
We're not doing it.
are you with a political party? Social organization? Civil society organization? But you don't answer questions about your cause? Or tell me your name? No? Are you paid to be here?
I'm not answering any more questions, so please stop asking.
So you won't answer if you're paid or not to be here? That's an easy yes or no question. But what about you?
As it turned out, they had been offered $100 or more for a couple hours' work each. January 28, 2019, the U.S. government announces charges for both Huawei and Meng Wanzhou. Here's Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker.
I am announcing that a grand jury in Seattle has returned an indictment that alleges 10 federal crimes by two affiliates of Telecommunications Corporation Huawei Technologies. I'm also announcing today a grand jury in New York has returned an indictment alleging 13 additional crimes committed by Huawei, its CFO, its affiliate in Iran, and one of its subsidiaries here in the United States. The criminal activity alleged in this indictment goes back at least 10 years and goes all the way to the top of the company.
Back and forth to court as Meng's lawyers denied that she lied to HSBC about the Huawei subsidiary Skycom and its business in Iran. They claimed that President Donald Trump meddled in the case, and Canadian customs and police officers overstepped their duties. August 10th, 2021. Michael Spavor sentenced to 11 years in jail. This is Canadian Ambassador to China, Dominic Barton.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this decision rendered after a legal process that lacked both fairness and transparency. Our thoughts are with Michael and his family during this difficult time. We've maintained from the beginning that Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig are being detained arbitrarily, and we will continue to call for their immediate release. And we will continue to work tirelessly to secure their freedom.
August 15th, 2021. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calls a snap election in the middle of the pandemic. August 18th, 2021. Meng's extradition hearing wraps. Associate Chief Justice Heather Holmes reserves judgment. She said she would announce the date for that verdict on October 21st. September 9th, 2021. The only English-language leaders' debate of the election. Conservative Aaron O'Toole took on Trudeau over Canada's strained relations with China.
We should be leaders for our values, sir. And you've let the Michaels down, and we have to get serious with China.
If you want to let the Michaels and get the Michaels home, you do not simply lob tomatoes across the Pacific.
September 20th, 2021, Election Day. Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party remains the minority government. September 24th, 2021, newsflash. Meng Wanzhou has reached a deferred prosecution agreement with the United States. She admitted that she lied to HSBC, but she pleaded not guilty. The charges will be dropped in December 2022 if Meng obeys the plea deal between now and then. U.S. authorities, however, say that they are preparing for a trial against Huawei. Meng delivered a prepared statement outside the law courts in Vancouver.
Firstly, I'd like to thank the Honorable Associate Chief Justice Holmes for her fairness in the whole legal proceedings. I also appreciate the Crown for their professionalism and the Canadian government for upholding the rule of law. Many thanks to the sheriffs for their hard work. I'm also grateful to Canadian people and the media friends for your tolerance. Sorry for the inconvenience caused. My thanks also go to my sheriffs who gave me a help handing when I was in difficulty. Your kindness will be remembered forever. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Chinese Embassy to Canada for their consistent support. I'm very proud of my dedicated lawyers, our in-house lawyers, and all my colleagues who have been striving forward during this tough time. Lastly, to my family, to my friends, to everyone who provided care and help for me all along the way. Thank you. Over the past 3 years, my life has been turned upside down. It was a disruptive time for me as a mother, a wife, and a company executive. But I believe every cloud has a silver lining. It really was an invaluable experience in my life. I will never forget all the good wishes I've received from people around the world. As the saying goes, the greater the difficulty, the greater the growth. Once again, thank you so much.
3 hours later, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calls a snap news conference on Parliament Hill.
About 12 minutes ago, the aircraft carrying Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor left Chinese airspace and they're on their way home. They boarded at about 7:30 Ottawa time, along with Dominic Barton, Canada's ambassador to China. These two men have gone through an unbelievably difficult ordeal.
September 25th, 2021. The two Michaels returned to Canada, touching down in Calgary at dawn. Meanwhile, in Shenzhen, China, Meng Wanzhou arrived to a hero's welcome. She spoke on Chinese state TV.
General Secretary Xi is concerned about the safety of every Chinese citizen. He has also cared about me, which has moved me deeply. I also appreciate relevant departments for giving full assistance to me. They firmly safeguard looking back the previous 3 years. I'm fully aware that the fate of each individual, the company, and the country are tightly together. And the motherland is our strongest backing. With a stable country, and it of the people. And as always, be proud of being a Chinese and proud of Huawei. Through this hardship, make me strong. All the difficulties, twists and turns, and also the perseverance and hard work will be translated to the power for us moving forward. We firmly support CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi as core, always loyal to the country and love our career, result to our company and pay back to the society. National Day is around the corner. Wish our motherland happy birthday.
Hostage diplomacy is alive and well. What next? Stay tuned. It's time on theBreaker.news podcast for Around the Rim. We look at news headlines around the Pacific Rim. In Mainichi News, Japan gets first pro esports team made up entirely of elderly players. The Mitagi Snipers in Akita Prefecture consist of 10 members, aged 61 to 73, including 2 in spots for juniors, aged 65 or younger. The team plans to start streaming its games on YouTube or Twitch, a platform for gamers, by the end of this month at the earliest. It also plans to participate in competitions and events from April next year. In the Taiwan news, Switzerland planning on importing Taiwanese wax apples to counter China ban. China halted imports of Taiwanese custard apples and wax apples, claiming that several shipments of the fruits had been infested with citrus mealybugs. In February, China banned Taiwanese pineapples for similar reasons. According to Taiwan's representative office in Switzerland, the Swiss-Taiwan Chamber of Commerce celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival. Those in attendance included 13 members of the Swiss Parliament, business people, and 50 other scholars, members of think tanks, and journalists. In the New Zealand Herald, fraudster mistakenly attempts phone scam on police. New Zealand police have shared an audio recording in which a person claiming to be from Spark mistakenly called them and attempted a scam. "I'm calling about your internet connection," said the scammer. "You did an online survey, and according to our survey, you need to know that your internet is not running on a secure line." The police officer who answered the call swiftly replied, "Well, you've called the New Zealand police, so I'd be very surprised if our internet wasn't secure." That's Around the Rim on this edition of the Breaker.news podcast. Now it's time on the Breaker.news podcast for Cascadia Calling. We look at news headlines around the Pacific Northwest. In the Oregonian, factory shutdowns put crimp in Nike's sales. Indonesia and Vietnam both shut down footwear factories in an attempt to tamp down outbreaks of COVID-19. Indonesia has since reversed course and is allowing the facilities to reopen. Vietnam remains shut down. Nike lost 10 weeks of production since late July. port bottlenecks and a shortage of shipping containers doubled delivery time from Asia to America from 40 to 80 days. Total Nike sales hit $12.25 billion in the first quarter. In the Seattle Times, Columbia River Gorge Stonehenge added to National Register of Historic Places. The monument is the century-old brainchild of businessman, philanthropist, world traveler, and road builder Samuel Hill. It was built between 1918 and 1929 in memory of Klickitat County men who died in World War I. Samuel Hill's granite crypt is just down the slope from the Stonehenge Memorial Bluff, and his epitaph reads, quote, "Samuel Hill, amid nature's great unrest, he sought rest," end quote. In Czech news, chocolatier by day, Elections Canada service agent by night. Victoria woman took a helicopter tour to help voters. Vlasta Booth is the owner and operator of Chocolat & Co. She also works as a service agent for Elections Canada and has been working every federal election since 2004. She visited 27 lighthouses around the province and met with dozens of lighthouse keepers, delivering 66 votes. That's Cascadia calling on this edition of the Breaker.news podcast.
You won't stand alone. We'll all stand together, 'cause this is our home. And it don't matter what color you are, 'cause love will conquer hate. So you won't stand alone. You won't stand alone.
The virtual Nanaimo Bar, brought to you by Spruce Hill Contracting. Every week we end the Breaker.news podcast on a tasty note by awarding the goodness of a virtual Nanaimo bar to people making a difference. A virtual version of the province's favorite dessert bar goes this week to doctors who treat concussions and researchers who are learning more about the common brain injury that afflicts many in sports. You can nominate someone for a virtual Nanaimo bar. Send us an email to bob@theBreaker.news. Spruce Hill Contracting, custom homes and renovations. Find more information at sprucehill.ca.
Vaccine, 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 vaccine. I'm begging of you, please don't hesitate. Vaccine, 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 vaccine. 'Cause once you're dead, then that's a bit too late. I know I'm trying to be funny now, but I'm dead serious about the vaccine. I think we all want to get back to normal, whatever that is, and that would be a great shot in the arm, wouldn't it?
That's it for the Breaker.news podcast for the week of September 26, 2021. I'm Bob Mackin. Thanks for joining me. Did you know that on September 26th in 1984, the United Kingdom agreed to hand over Hong Kong to China in 1997. China promised to maintain a one country, two systems policy, affording Hong Kong economic and personal freedoms. That promise didn't age well. Now you know. Send me your feedback and send me your story ideas to bob@theBreaker.news. Bookmark theBreaker.news. You can also find us at theBreaker.ca. Sign up for the email newsletter and get updates to your inbox. For news as it happens, follow The Breaker News on Twitter and visit theBreaker.news on Facebook. You can support The Breaker for as little as $2 a month. For more information, go to patreon.com/thebreakernews. That's patreon.com/thebreakernews. Until next week.